Hello students, how are you? I hope all of you are fine, doing good. Okay, today I have come with another very important topic to discuss. And the topic that we will be discussing today is related to the nervous system. The nervous system is a very important chapter that biology students have to learn in the class second year. And I will not be going into a lot of detail of the topics that I will be discussing for you because I want to make the topics very easy. I want to keep them easy. So I will just be giving you the basic concepts that you are required to know. Once you know about the basic concepts about the topics that I am teaching you people, you can go into the detail or you can ask me questions or you can request me to give you a detailed lecture on any topic that you require. At present, the topics that I'm uploading for you people are just very simple. I'm tackling with them very simply. I'm not going into too much of detail and I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for all the students that are joining me. Right? So let me go to the share screen and then I will start the main topic. First of all, the whiteboard. I'm going to open the whiteboard and we are going to see some things that we are going to study today. Okay, we are going to study today, we are going to study the nerve impulse, the process of nerve impulse, the manner in which nerve impulse is going to be transmitted, the nature of nerve impulse, the conditions in which the neuron is going to be present, that ions which are going to be involved in the transmission of nerve impulse. We will be discussing all these things. It won't be done in one lecture, it will be done in 2 or 3 lectures. And at present today, I'm just going to give you the introduction. And this is going to be the part one of the nerve impulse. Nerve impulse, actually, what is it? Nerve impulse is actually an information that is transferring along the neuron, which starts from the receptors and goes up to the central nervous system. It is an information. And that information, in what form is it flowing through the neuron? That is in the form of different types of ions, different types of disturbances that are present inside the neuron. In another word, if we say, if I try to give you a more detailed definition, technically, if I try to define the nerve impulse, so we can say that the nerve impulse, it can be defined as a wave of electrochemical changes. Electrochemical, you people have studied about electrochemical in your physics and in your chemistry classes also. You have an idea of what electrochemical means. Electrochemical changes that travels along the length of the neuron. Along the length of the neuron means case straight. It travels straight in the neuron from one end to the other. It does not branch. It does not branch. Now, when we come to this word, which is electrochemical, be very attentive. The electrochemical, it refers to actually a specific type of potential, which is called the electrical potential. Potential means power, strength. Electrochemical potential, electrical potential, electrical potential. Electrical potential means the capacity, the power for a material to do electrical work, to see the transmission of ions. In normally, in when we study in physics or chemistry, we see that electrical flow is actually the flow of electrons, but in this case it is going to be a little bit different. It is going to be a different dispersion of ions. It is going to be dispersion of ions, and these ions are very different. These ions are different from the conventional electrical flow that we observe. Okay, this is the ion that is present actually in the neuron membrane. This is the dispersion of ions that is present in the neuron membrane. It is present in the neuron membrane. And that is why in the neuron, this electrochemical potential or this electrical potential is known as the membrane potential. That is why it is known as the membrane potential also. This membrane potential is actually the electrical potential that is present inside the membrane. And membrane of what? Membrane of the neuron. And specifically which part of the neuron? Specifically the axonal membrane of the neuron, the axonal part. The axon of the neuron, the potential energy that is stored in the membrane, which separates the charge across the barrier. If we say what is meant by a neuron or a membrane potential, what is meant by a membrane potential? Membrane potential is a sort of stored energy. Stored energy means it is going to be potential in nature. It is a form of stored energy or potential energy which is present in the neuron, and it is used to separate the charges across the neuron. Now, this is very, very important. Across the neuron, to separate the charges across the neuron means okay, the axon membrane has an outer surface and an inner surface. And this potential is used to separate the charges across the neuron in and out. This is known as a neuron potential, or it is known as a membrane potential. Now, how many types of membrane potential do we have? We have two main types of membrane potential. And these two main types of membrane potential are the resting membrane potential, that is when the neuron is not transmitting any message, when it is not transmitting any message, it is not in the transmission phase. That is the resting membrane potential. It is at rest. It is at rest. And then we have the active membrane potential. Active membrane potential. This is when the neuron is transmitting. When the neuron is transmitting messages, when the neuron has been stimulated and it is transmitting messages from one place to another. It is transmitting messages from one place to another. That in that case, it is said to be the active membrane potential. A resting membrane potential is that situation when the neuron is not transmitting any message. And the active membrane potential is that situation when the neuron is transmitting messages from one part to the other. Okay, right. Now we have various kinds of conditions which we have to keep in mind. We will be discussing the detail of the conditions in the next class. But today I will just tell you the conditions that we have to keep in mind. When we are studying about neuron potential or membrane potential, when we have to study the resting membrane potential and the active membrane potential, we have to keep in mind, first of all, the concentration of sodium, the concentration of sodium ions. Okay, the concentration of sodium ions. We have to keep in view the concentration of the potassium ions, the concentration of the potassium ions. Then we have to keep in view the voltage that is present across the membrane, the voltage that is present across. Then we have to see the position of charges. I am not explaining these things at present. The position of charges or distribution of charges. Right, in the next class we will discuss these things, the distribution of charges. Then we have to see the distribution of negative charges. We have to see the distribution of negative charges. All these conditions, they are going to be together to bring about a change in the neuron distribution of ions. Then we have to keep in view the pumps and channels that are working across the membrane. The pumps and channels. Pumps are those parts, are those gateways that will require energy, across which active transport is going to take place. And the channels are those ones through which a passive transport is going to take place, in which energy is not required. Let me go to the share screen, and let me share the next screen for you people so that we can discuss the initial definitions, and then in the next class I will give you the detail. Nerve impulse. Nerve impulse is the way a nerve cell or neuron communicates with one another. Nerve impulses are mostly electrical signals along the dendrites to produce a nerve impulse or action potential. Active membrane potential is the action potential, and it is also known as the nerve impulse. The action potential, it is the result of ions moving in and out of the cell. Which ions? Potassium and sodium ions. These ions move in and out across the potassium channels, sodium channels, and the sodium-potassium pump. I have told you all these things right now. Nerve impulse, what is it? It is actually a wave of electrochemical changes along the length of the neuron. Electrochemical changes along the length of the neuron. Electrical potential, what is it? It is the measure of the capacity to do electrical work. Electrical potential that exists along the membrane is called the membrane potential. We have two types of membrane potential, the resting membrane potential and the active membrane potential. The resting membrane potential is the net difference in charge between the inner and the outer of a non-conducting neuron. Now, we will continue this in the next period. I will tell you the conditions of the resting membrane potential. This was just an introduction of the lecture. In the next class, we will be discussing the detail of the resting membrane potential. And then after that, we will discuss the detail of the active membrane potential. See you people next time. Take care of yourself. Goodbye.